Is death the worst thing that can actually happen to you? Well, if you watch the films and if you watch the news, you would probably draw that conclusion. After all, every film has got somebody running at somebody else with a gun and somebody trying to run away to save their own lives. Everybody wants to save their life. Then there's everybody wearing a mask or not living, trying to avoid death on the news, or trying to avoid one disease after another, trying not to die. So it seems that death is very much to be avoided. And in fact, our first experience of death would be we go to a funeral or somebody dies in our close family and everybody wears black and everybody cries because that's what you do when people die. And it's a very sad situation. It's very, very difficult to handle. And you'll see your friends, family, parents, and whoever act in ways that you've never seen before. They'll be distraught and they will talk about the loss and they will be giving each other sympathy and condolences. But what is that? Because if you take a step back from death, what do you actually know about death? Have you spoken to somebody who's been there, interestingly? The question of where were you before you were born suddenly raises its head. I mean, is it reasonable to believe that where you were before you were born was where you're going to go when you die? Do you remember it? Do you know? No. It turns out that death is actually an idea. It's an idea created by humans. We've decided that death is bad. In nature, the cycles come and they go. The leaves fall off the trees and die and then they recycle. The animals come and they go. And death doesn't seem to be a big issue. You don't see the rabbits having a funeral and wearing black. What's interesting about death is humans have made it into something very specific. They have decided it's bad. They have given it polarity. They've also created the idea of heaven and hell. So there's always the risk and the fear that comes with, where am I going to go? Was I good enough? I mean, that's an idea too, surely. We all recognize that these are just ideas. Death is just an idea. Maybe what brings death home to us a little bit better is that life is an idea too. Interesting to consider the birthing process of most animals. Birthing is very interesting because apparently animals get together and create life. And they create life from whatever they are maybe eating, and maybe we've all been led to believe they do it by reproduction, by having sex with each other. What's kind of quite interesting to notice is that the animals are eating whatever they eat and they are creating new animals from that food. They are synthesizing their food into new beings, new rabbits, new deer, new birds. They are eating all different things and they are creating new things from them. The birds are super interesting because these birds lay eggs, and in the egg are liquids. We know what's in the egg because we've all had a fried egg, a poached egg, or a raw egg even. And we see two liquids, one yellow, one clear, and we know that that's what's inside an egg. It's a closed system, that's what's inside it. But these things get together and they organize themselves and they create a beak and they create feathers and they create feet and they create a little heart and eyeballs and so much more in an organized system directly from two liquids and all inside a closed shell. And then this little thing becomes alive at some point and it pecks its way out of the closed shell. A little chick emerges from a little closed egg, and we look at that and we go, oh, right, the chickens come out of the eggs, and that's what happens. But what's interesting is to consider, where did the life start? And if we did, and we got 100 people in a room, we would have a debate. Did the life start when the food was eaten? Was the food alive? Did the life start when the chicken laid the egg, when the egg was built, when the shell was created? How did the chicken create the egg? And were the two liquids alive that are inside of the egg? Or was the chicken only alive at some specific moment when it had organized itself into feathers and a beak and a heart and lungs and all of the other bits, and then pecked its way out of the egg? And of course, you can't avoid the similarity to humans. Human babies are created from nothing into something, and at some point start to live, apparently. But they are created from the food we eat. They are synthesized from everything in our surroundings. Maybe the light, maybe the heat, maybe the warmth, maybe the air, maybe the food. They are synthesized. But what's alive? Where did the life begin? The debate is endless. But the point is very strong, that we have created the idea of life. We have created a concept that says a certain thing is alive at a certain point, and we call life life. We don't consider that every single part of the system is life, and it is alive. We don't consider that the whole system is endlessly recycling itself, and that the food that gets eaten is synthesized into new life, and therefore the food was no doubt alive when it started, because the whole thing is alive and it's life, and it endlessly does that. So, we make ourselves happy by considering that the animals are alive, but the grass maybe isn't that they ate. And some of us will eat only grass or vegetables or natural produce, and they won't eat the meat from the chicken because the chicken is alive and it is a different kind of life, because we've got ideas about life. We've got ideas about that life is a category of thing. But is it? Life and death are not necessarily related, because life is a continuum. The food goes in, the chickens come out, and the whole thing recycles itself. Where does the life begin and end? Who knows? What starts the life? What is alive? Is it the light? Is it the warmth? Is it the air? Is it the soil? Is it the plants? Is it all alive? And is there anything that isn't alive within the whole system? As soon as we start to see that the system has no beginning and no end, we realize that it's irrelevant when the body is called alive or not. When the life is, we can say the life started when the chicken popped out of the egg, but equally we can say that whatever the chicken ate was alive. We can't differentiate between where the life begins and ends. And so, what is death? Why have we decided that death is the end of life, when in actual fact the body will decompose and create new life, and the cycle will continue ad infinitum? And was the body even there? Did the body decompose, or was the whole thing a sea of life that is never ending and indifferentiable? Life and death is such a big subject for humans, as if the whole thing depends on whether humans live through it and whether humans are alive. And we all get sad when somebody dies. But is that because it's sad, or is that because we have the idea that death is a certain thing and that life is something different? That things are alive at a certain moment and dead at another moment? That's just an idea. So if you don't know any more than the idea of life and death, and you haven't noticed that the whole system is life and that it never ends and it's circular, then maybe you could be forgiven for thinking that death is the end. It's sad and it's something to be avoided. But as soon as you see that life is the whole thing and it's perpetual and it's going round in circles, and you can't differentiate which parts of the system are alive and which parts of the system are not alive, in fact it's highly likely that everything is life, then you suddenly realise there's nothing to fear in the recycling, and there's nothing to fear in, or to be protected in, an earth that needs climate change or other ideas applied to it, or humans surviving as a species, or any of the other things that say we've got to stop living in order to live longer and not to die. Why? Who decided? How did we get there? Is it all about life and death? Or is that just part of the cycle that is never ending that we're in? And does it even matter anyway? Because it's all unavoidable. It's all going round in circles. You're eating the food, you're synthesizing new humans, and those new humans are coming, replacing the old humans. The old humans are moving out of their bodies and continuing in some other way, because the life isn't going anywhere. It's just being recycled. So maybe when you're fearing your own death next time, you should deeply consider where you started, how life started for you, how it starts for the chicken, and where was the life, where is the life. Just because you have an awareness of things around you doesn't mean that that's when the life started. The life is endless, and you are in it, and you need not create ideas, because you'll never know the answer to where it starts and where it ends. So what's to fear?